Have you heard? Real estate is about to change. Hello and thank you for watching. If you don't know, my name is Ruben Chavez. I'm a mortgage broker. I help people finance home ownership. Also, please like and subscribe if you like this content. All right, enough with the introductions. Have you heard the news? Real estate is about to change. And in my opinion, this is going to do a lot more harm than good. Everybody in the industry is saying, calm down. This isn't a big deal. It's not as big as it seems like it is. This will take years in court to finalize. I'm here to say that they're all wrong. But I hope I'm wrong. All right, what just happened? In 2017, two Missouri homeowners named John Sitzer and Michael Burnett filed a class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, aka NAR, and two of its largest real estate company members, Home Services of America and Keller Williams Realty. The plaintiffs alleged that NAR's rules and the corporate defendants' practices were anti-competitive and led to higher real estate commission rates for consumers. Specifically, plaintiffs challenged NAR's clear cooperation policy, which requires listing agents to offer a portion of the commissions to buyer's agents in order to have their listings displayed on the multiple listing services, the MLS. MLS is the platform realtors use to put your home on the market. The plaintiffs argued that the clear cooperation policy forces sellers to pay the buyer's agents even if they do not want or need their services. They argue that NAR's rules and the corporate defendants' practices have led to a fixed commission rate of 6% in most markets, which to them is way too high. The case went to trial in October of 2023, and in November of 2023, the jury found that NAR and the corporate defendants were liable for antitrust violations. The jury awarded the plaintiffs, get this, the jury awarded the plaintiffs $1.78 billion in damages. So in simpler terms, what happened? Basically, a group of homeowners sued the National Association of Realtors and two of the biggest real estate companies, saying that the rules were anti-competitive and led to higher commission rates. The homeowners won the case, but NAR is, of course, obviously appealing. At least that's what they're saying. So what is transpiring? What's transpiring is no longer should or will the seller pay the buyer's realtor commission. Now, that was a lot, right? That's a lot to take in. And I want to break this down with 2 points. One, why NAR is going to probably settle and not appeal. And two, how's it going to hurt the industry as a whole? All right, let's get started on my opinion on this. So why is NAR, Home Services of America, and Keller Williams, why are they probably not going to appeal this? And in my opinion, it almost has everything to do with the bond. You see, NAR has to come up with a bond of $1.78 billion in order to appeal this case. This is just in case they lose the appeal, right? There has to be some way to ensure that the plaintiffs get their money. The question here is, who's going to put up the bond or put up a bond that's going to be that high with that amount? So you see, when you underwrite a bond, you must look at the possibility of winning versus losing. What evidence is put in front of me that makes me think that there's a chance of losing? And in this scenario, there's a lot of evidence as to why you should think that you're probably going to lose this case. And remember, with no bond comes no case. All right, so let's just start with the fact that two major players in this game of real estate have already settled with the defendants. All right, it was RE/MAX Real Estate and Anywhere Real Estate. They both settled to avoid going to trial. That means that those two huge real estate companies took a look at the info and said, well, we'll probably lose, right? Let's just settle now and possibly save us hundreds of millions of dollars in the future. How much did RE/MAX settle for? RE/MAX settled for $55 million, right? Anywhere Real Estate, the Anywhere Real Estate Company, they paid out $83.5 million. All that money to avoid going to trial. The only way a company pays out that type of money is if they know they're going to lose, right? And in my opinion, that does set a precedent. Next reason, while they're underwriting this bond, they'd probably like to know what is going on in court or what happened in court. And what happened was a unanimous decision in not 1 week, not a couple of days, not even 1 day, 3 hours. It took less than 3 hours to come up with a guilty decision. The cost of this bond just skyrocketed. Next reason, the plaintiff's lawyer, Michael Ketchmark, is playing this perfectly. The same day as the guilty verdict, he sued a couple of other states. Remember, this $1.87 billion ruling was just for Missouri. He said he's taking this to all 49 other states. NAR doesn't want this. Hell, even the lawyers don't want this. If they go to just a couple of other states and are found guilty, it will bankrupt the companies. And then nobody gets paid. It's in both NAR's and the plaintiff's best interest to just settle, do one settlement, include all 50 states, and move on. Maybe have a payout settlement of over 10, 20-year period just to ensure that all the companies are able to stay alive, right? If you're not alive, you're not paying out this settlement. All right, what are we on now? We're on the fourth reasons why I don't believe this will be appealed. As of January 1st, 2024, the Real Estate Board of New York will no longer allow for listing brokers to pay part of the commissions to the buyer's broker. That's how real estate is done now. A typical transaction is where the seller agrees to pay the listing agent's broker 6% to list and sell their home. Then typically, the listing agent offers 3% of that 6% to the buyer's agent as a part of an incentive to bring the buyers to their listings. You see, back in the day, realtors had an inventory log that they carried around with them. The realtors were the gatekeepers of the inventory log. And back then, if the buyer's agent knew a property wasn't paying full commission to them, the realtor in many cases would just so happen to bypass that home. Interesting how that works, right? So the 3% to the buyer's agent was an incentive to ensure that their listing would at least be seen to the prospective buyers. Now with the internet, that realtor log is no longer needed. All the inventory is now online. That 3% incentive to the buyer's agent to ensure your listing is seen is no longer applicable due to technology. So more precedent is being set by New York being the first state to turn this into law. The fifth reason it's too risky for this to be appealed is because, with the exception to the US and Canada, the rest of the Western world doesn't have the listing agent pay for the buyer's agent. In other countries, if you want the buyer's agent to represent you, it will have to come out of the buyer's pocket. Now, I don't care what other countries do, right? I don't care what they do or how they do it, unless I'm a lawyer trying to prove my case. This is another huge stamp in the lawyer's playbook if you're trying to prove that this is how things should be done. And finally, the sixth reason this probably won't be appealed: why should a buyer pay a realtor to completely undercut them? The buyer's agent's job is to get the best deal for their buyer. And let me tell you, some of the buyer agents that I work with are killers. They're going to do and get as much as they can for their buyer as humanly possible. Those are great agents. And as it stands now, the seller is paying a buyer's agent to work against his best interest. Let's use the famous say it out loud method. My favorite method, the figuring out if things are good or bad. Okay, so let's say it out loud. You're going to list your home with the goal of making as much money as humanly possible. But at the same time, you're going to pay a realtor up to 3% of your earnings, and his job will be to negotiate against you from reaching your goal. Yeah, that makes no sense. If you were an insurance company, would you risk $1.87 billion knowing all these things? Probably not, right? And those are all the reasons why I don't believe this case will ever be appealed. You heard it from me first. I haven't heard anyone say this yet, which means I'm probably wrong. Now, why is this going to hurt the real estate industry as a whole? Let's concede. Most people are not real estate gurus. When walking into a home, there are so many telltale items to be looking for, not just what's in front of you, right? You got to look at the outside items as well. Meaning, is the home even priced right? Is the school district up to your standards? Things to consider when purchasing a 1-story versus a 2-story. Does the roof look like it's on its last leg? I can go on for hours. And not having a professional to truly help ensure you do this real estate thing right, it could set you back years. Is there any doubt that by not having a professional help you with these items, it's going to hurt the consumer. I don't think anybody would argue that. Let's talk about the seller paying for the buyer's agent. That part of the process does suck. I get it. But in what other industry can you buy something, use it for years, and sell it for even more, even if the product or the home is in worse condition than when you got it? If you purchased a home in 2016 and sold it in 2020, you probably made well over $100,000 from that, regardless of the condition of the home. You didn't do anything special for that money either, right? In most cases, you lived in a home, there was no produce being grown for public consumption, no products and services out of your front door, no benefit to the economy from your home that the next home didn't provide. You just lived there, and now you're $100,000 richer. Most renters might say that this isn't fair. Either way, life isn't fair. But what is best for the economy, the consumer, and the real estate industry as a whole? It's best to just leave things where they are. It's not fair that you made over $100,000 by doing nothing, and it's not fair that you also have to pay some of that money to a buyer's agent. That's life. That's the trade-off. The seller still gets the way better deal in the end, as they should be. Now, my job stays the same. Technically, I shouldn't be affected by any of this. I'm a mortgage lender. I'm not a realtor. This is why I believe my opinion can be unbiased or is unbiased. My hopes are that somehow things remain the same and we're all better off for it. I just don't know and don't believe that that's going to be reality moving forward. It's always been an option to pay for the buyer's agent. Truthfully, everything's negotiable in this real estate game. Buyers and listing agents' commission is 100% negotiable. But however negotiable it is, at the same time, it's always been implied, right? It's always been assumed that the seller will pay the 6% seller commission, and part of that 6% will go to the buyer's agent. Moving forward, agents will not be able to act as if the commissions are implied any longer. They will now have to say, do you want to willfully pay the buyer's agent's commission? And let's be honest, at first they might say yes, right? Sure, okay, that's how it's always been done. Until you calculate 3% of $500,000. Then the answer will probably turn to no. And the rest is history. That's all I got for you today. Please remember, life's not meant to be, it's meant to create. Too strong.